It's customary on this show to introduce every person with 5 words. And they're always the same except for the first 2 words, which are the person's name. So it's Tracy Letts is an actor. And I say nothing else about what they've done. It doesn't matter what your credits are, what you're a working actor. There have been times, though, when people have been on where just saying those 5 words felt a little weird because they are so much else also. Mainly it's a writer, like Ruben Santiago Hudson. But I never felt more conflicted about this than with you. And I just wanted to know if somebody at, like, let's just say at a party, just introduced you and just said, this is Tracy, he's an actor. And they didn't say anything else. They didn't say, and the writer. You know, how would you feel about that?
Great.
And what about the opposite?
Great. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm often asked, what is your profession, right? Even filling out a form or in a doctor's office, and what do you do?
Yeah.
Sometimes I say I'm an actor, sometimes I say I'm a writer. I very rarely say I'm an actor and a writer.
Wow.
Because then you have to explain shit. I don't want to have to explain it.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Tracy Letts is an actor. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
You don't put a lot of stock in the whole research thing for a role. And I even heard you say, you know, when you do that, you found out that you become truer to the research than to the script. But you've gone farther and even said sometimes, like for Christine, the movie Christine, the director said, hey, we have access to all this old equipment. Come on down, get your hands on it if you want to. And you're like, am I gonna use it in the movie? And they're like, no. And you're like, well, why would I want to do that then? And I thought that was fascinating because here I am talking to all these actors and they talk about that. They talk about putting their hands on or knowing how to do a crazy thing that we would never, like, you know, if they have to do an operation, they practically almost do an operation. And to hear you say, no, am I doing it in the movie? I don't. It was kind of freeing, and it was almost, and a part of me though was almost like scared because I thought, well, wait, isn't that part of acting? Is to get really embedded in the thing you're doing so much that even if you're not doing it in the scene, you can use it somehow in your. I don't know. I mean, as I'm saying, it actually makes no sense. But is there any moment where in the middle of actually being in the moment, where you think, maybe I should have put my hands on that equipment because I'd be feeling more in the present moment here?
No. The simple truth is that what we're doing is pretending, and we want to be able to pretend with authority. You know, a little kid can pretend to be a doctor, but they don't know anything about being a doctor. But we do know something. We've interacted with a lot of doctors in our lives now as adults. I don't feel the need to go to medical school in order to be able to pretend I'm a doctor with authority. I think there are probably exceptions to this. And I think, first of all, I think all actors are different and all actors do what they need to do. I mean, an actor who does go to medical school so they can more realistically portray a doctor, so they feel more authority when they pretend. That's fine. I don't.
They're not necessarily wasting their time?
No, not necessarily. Yeah. It's what they need to do in order to play the part. Everybody has different things they need to do in order to play the part. I don't feel the need to handle that video equipment if I'm not going to be handling the video equipment in the movie in order to play the manager of that TV station in 1974. So you just do what you need. Yeah. And I think I'm sure there are exceptions. If I were playing Hitler, I would do some heavy research.
Yeah.
You know, I would go to the library. I would read a lot of the books. I would tune into the History Channel. I would do all that stuff. I can't because the way I would pretend to be Hitler without all that stuff is just to do a kind of cartoon version of Hitler.
Yes.
So I think that different roles require different stuff.
And I think it comes down to something that keeps coming back up on the show, which is you have to fool yourself first. We always think we have to fool the audience, but the first part is fooling yourself. And it seems like you don't need much to fool yourself. Maybe another person would need to go to school or whatever. We're exaggerating a little bit, or whatever, to fool themselves into the role.
Right.
And so that, and I think it's good for people listening that they don't have to feel guilty or somehow feel like they're less of a prepared person if they don't go the full 9 yards here.
Right.
To do it, because you can still be fully present, fully in the scene, fully in the moment, and fully performing that part.
I also think that I think it seems to me that it's a modern, is something that's happened in contemporary acting, is that a lot of actors, especially during quote unquote awards season, they feel the need to show their work.
Yes.
They want to impress people with how hard I worked in order to do this.
Yeah.
So I went to medical school. You understand the commitment that I've made, the money I spent, the time I put in. You understand what I've done in order to play this part.
Right.
And they think, and maybe they're right, that lay people will hear that and go, wow, that's a real actor because he went to medical school.
Honey, who should I vote for? Well, wait, that person went to medical school.
That's exactly
for
right.
that part.
As opposed to saying, I didn't go to medical school. I'm not a doctor. I play one on TV.
A moment that I want to talk about in your career that I find fascinating is this moment in the late 90s, or maybe it's the early 2000s, where you were in LA. The way you describe it is you became very frustrated that you were not one of the people that were lucky enough to be cast in VIP, which is this show. Maybe people were sleeping in the 2000s before 11 p.m. because that's when it used to come on. Pamela Anderson. The thing that was very appealing about it, the way you tell it, is that there was a lot of residuals because of its overseas release and was playing in a lot of countries. So it was almost like a coveted thing. And even if you had a small role on this show, you could live for a little while.
Yeah.
But you had come to a moment realizing, wow, I am kind of jealous of friends that have been on this show, and just taking into account just the style of work, basically. The way you describe it is, it was a slight revelation to you of what is going on here. And you went back to Chicago, where you had been acting years before that, left there to go to LA to be an actor. But the idea of going back to Chicago is what I find fascinating, because you could have just put your head down and kind of kept going out there as an actor and maybe made a living. But you returned to what you say, to poverty in a way, for the idea of doing better work. That, of course, paid off.
Yeah.
What was it that you needed as an artist to feed yourself with that you were going to get in Chicago?
I had done a lot of good work in the theater in Chicago, and I had gotten to a point in Chicago where I was working steadily. Not at the biggest theaters in Chicago, but still, I was doing a lot of good work in good plays, good roles, and I left to go to Los Angeles when I was 32. And I was interested in testing myself in that marketplace and seeing if I could get work and learning about acting on camera. And 32 is a particular age. I felt like, okay, I did have a sense of entering a new phase of adulthood. I was no longer, an ingenue actor.
Yeah.
Not a young leading man. A 32-year-old leading man / character actor in the theater. So I went to LA, and what I didn't know was the importance of the agent, just how important the agent is, agent or manager, people you have working on your behalf, how important they are in terms of the rooms you get into, the roles you're considered for, the things you're seen for. And the truth is, I booked work in LA. I did Seinfeld episode, I did The District, and Profiler, and Drew Carey, and an independent movie called Guinevere, Audrey Wells wrote and directed. So I worked. But I also went long periods of time without working. I was never comfortable on a set. It always felt like the first day of school. I didn't feel I was learning because all I was trying to do was master my nerves or get over social anxiety, or you go on a set in a circumstance like that, everybody knows everybody except you because you're the day player or the week player. They don't know you. You don't know any of their names. You don't know what they do. You don't know what their function is. You haven't even worked so much that you understand all of the things that are going to happen that day before you act. Getting onto the set, finding the PA, finding your way into the trailer, being taken to hair and makeup, going through hair and makeup, getting into your costume, and all the way down to when you're eventually taken to the set and your heart's racing because you have to deliver and you get to the set, and you're not even aware of all of the things that are going to happen on the set. You're getting tuned up for a performance, and suddenly, we want to send you to sound. You need to be wired for sound. Oh, I had forgotten that was even going to happen. And then you're on the set, and they do last looks, and they're putting makeup on. Or you go through a rehearsal with the director. All these things that are standing between you at the beginning of the day and actually acting. And they're all kind of ratcheting up your nerves. It's like, aren't I waiting for the word action? And eventually, even then, there will be beeps and clicks and other people weighing in and focus and et cetera, until you finally hear the word action, and it's like, deliver right now.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy any of that. None of that felt like it was conducive to doing good work or to being able to learn from the previous experience what I learned from that experience going to the next one, because there'd be such long period of time between gigs. So I started to dread the work. I not only dreaded not getting the work, I dreaded when I got the work. I thought, now I have to go do this job. It was a miserable feeling. I also, and this is, I'll be frank with you about this. When you're a young actor, you have dreams, aspirations, thoughts about the kind of career you could have, you might have. And I think that's common to most people in most lines of work. And the truth is that as we get older, we adapt our dreams and ambitions. We have to adapt to the real world and real concerns. And so we adapt our expectations. And I went to see, I was in LA at the time, and I went to see The Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon and Jude Law. Terrific movie. They're both excellent in the movie. And I remember watching the movie realizing, I'm not going to be the talented Mr. Ripley. Right? That dream or ambition is not going to happen for me. Some dreams die hard. Some of them are just natural. And you go, okay, that's not going to happen. Time to adapt and do something else. Of course, in LA, you're just trying to get the next fucking job just to stay afloat. You're just trying to do anything to get the next job. As miserable as I was doing those jobs, I was thrilled when I got them because I was able to pay my bills. I don't come from money. My parents were school teachers. It's not like there was money. So, yeah, things like VIP started to take on more and more weight and importance.
Yeah.
Just the survival instinct in Los Angeles. I need a job that's going to get me to the next thing, And yeah, there came a point when I left, and there were a lot of reasons for leaving. There were personal reasons as well. But when I left to go back to Chicago, I was 36. And now I'm not going to be the talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah.
And now I'm entering into a phase of my career where I'm really thinking, I have good work inside of me that I want to do. And I'm not getting an opportunity to do it one day, 1 week, a sitcom here. I mean, Seinfeld was one of the first things I booked in LA, and it paid off like a slot machine. I still get checks from that goddamn show.
Yeah.
And so I was thrilled to have the job, and those people were all very nice, and I had a good experience, but it was 4 days. You know, it's 4 days out of my life. It's not exactly enough to feed the soul or make me feel like I'm fulfilling my potential as an actor. Yeah. So when I went back to Chicago, my friend Amy Morton was directing a production of Glengarry Glen Ross in Chicago. And at the time, she was appearing on Broadway in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. She was playing Nurse Ratched. And I flew to New York. I've never done this in my life. I flew to New York, and Amy and I went out, and I asked her for a job. I asked her to put me in Glengarry. I said, I need to come back to Chicago, and it was a play I had done before, tiny little theater, and I said, I need this job. And she gave me a job. And so I went to Chicago knowing I had a job waiting for me in Chicago. And that's when I took what I call the vow of poverty, because you just can't make any money in Chicago theater. You can work every week of the year in the biggest theater in town, and you might eke out a living, but you can't really make a living there. It's a great city for the work, and the work is great and rigorous, and there's a lot of opportunity, but there's no money, and it's not a stepping stone to money. You won't make money as a result of the work you're doing there, or so I thought. Because I went back, I did Glengarry. Steppenwolf added me to their ensemble shortly thereafter, with a condition. I don't think they had ever done that before, but they actually said to me, we're going to add you to the ensemble, but the condition is you have to stay here in Chicago. They'd lost so many people who had gone to the coasts. So many of the original members, John Malkovich, Laurie Metcalf, Gary Sinise, et cetera, so many of their members had gone to the coasts to pursue their acting careers. They didn't have ensembles there on the ground in Chicago. So they said, we'll make you an ensemble member, but you can't just run off to LA, run back to LA and try to score work. So we want you to stay. And I said, great, I'm in. And I not only had a place that was giving me steady work as an actor, and again, good, challenging, rich roles in the theater, both leading man and character actor roles in the theater, but also a place for me as a playwright to get my work done. So they added me, I think in 2002. I wrote my first play for Steppenwolf in 2003, which was Man from Nebraska. And then in 2007, August, Osage County, I wrote, and so much for the vow of poverty, right? This sort of took care of the vow of poverty.
When you started doing more film and television, and I'm assuming that this is probably in the last 10 years, after August,
Yeah.
You were talking about how you kind of had to get used to it again, or had to get used to it for the first time, really, because you were doing real work now. And those things you said I found really interesting. Your wife came to the set one day, and you asked her to sit by the monitor, and I should probably have you tell this.
I'll gladly tell.
Okay.
So, just a little history. So when I took the vow of poverty and went to Chicago, I mean, they just don't make a lot of film and TV in Chicago. There's always been sporadic film and TV work. And I think I did, the only thing I can recall doing when I went back to Chicago were 2 episodes of the TV show Prison Break. A tiny role. But again, as a Chicago theater actor, to supplement income, it's always great when you could get some work like that. Cut to 7 years later, when I did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with Steppenwolf, and we took it to Broadway. And Alex Gansa, who created the TV show Homeland, created the show for American audiences. It was already an Israeli show, but adapted it for American audiences. He saw me in Virginia Woolf, and he offered me a job on Homeland. And I had not worked on camera in 7 years at that point. It had been a long time. And truly, I had given it up.
Yeah.
When I moved to Chicago, again, part of the vow of poverty was this, not only am I not going to be the talented Mr. Ripley, I'm moving to a city where they don't really make this stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be glad if something crops up and I can get a little residual money out of Prison Break or whatever, but this is not a goal for me anymore. So I had really given it up. And at this point, I'm in my mid-40s, I guess. And Alex sees the show, offers me this job, and I read the script, and I didn't really want to do it. I was, again, that miserable feeling I had felt on sets. I wasn't eager to revisit that. And the script itself was a hard-ass government guy. Mm-hmm. And even the first scene is he's grilling Mandy Patinkin in front of an enormous Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, hundreds of extras, and I thought, that looks like a lot of pressure, and I don't know that I want to do that. But I got on the phone with Alex, and he didn't exactly talk me into it, but I was just so admiring of the way he talked about his own show, the way he talked about the character. He's a very thoughtful guy, a talented guy. I had watched the first season, found it really compelling, and I admired the show. And he talked about some things he wanted to do with the character and the way he saw the character fitting in the national conversation about, well, Homeland Security and drone strikes and the situation in the Middle East. I always admired that the show had a foot in the real world. And so I agreed to do it. They made me a series regular on the show, which had a lot of meaning for me because, again, that feeling of not feeling like I fit or belong. Yeah. I thought, I can overcome that a little bit if I'm working regularly on the show. I can learn people's names. I'll learn the names of the people in the makeup trailer. I'll learn the names of the crew. That sense of a sense of family.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I can get that, maybe my shoulders will drop a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'll start to learn all of those things that are going to happen between the time I show up and the time I actually get to act. I'll learn, they'll become second nature to me because I'll have some repetition. And the other great thing that happened is that I went on the set, and on the first day, I said to Claire Danes and Mandy Patinkin, I haven't done this in 7 years. I don't feel like I really know what I'm doing. I'm going to pick your brain. And they said, great. And they were both very generous and helpful with me and became friends of mine. They were lovely, lovely people to me. And yeah, I was trying to learn. One of the great things about doing a TV show is that you can do it and then you can watch an episode and then you go back to do another episode. Yeah. And so you can actually learn from the doing of it. And there was one day that Carrie was visiting the set and I was playing a scene with Mandy, and it was mainly a reactive scene. I didn't have a lot to say in the scene. Mandy was mainly bringing me some information. And I asked Carrie, my wife, I said, will you watch on the monitor? I'm going to do two very different things. I'm going to do two different approaches to this. And I want you to tell me, I didn't tell her what I was going to do. I just want you to tell me which is more effective. And in the first take, I tried to just focus on Mandy and listen to what he was saying and think and react. And in the second take, I internalized everything. I don't think I moved a muscle. I just really decided I'm going to be just super still and slow my breath and only think the thoughts inside my head. I'm not going to allow any of the thoughts to show. I'm not going to gesture. I'm just going to look at Mandy, listen, and breathe. And Carrie came up to me afterwards and she said, oh, second take was a lot better. I was like, wow, there you go. There's a lesson. The camera sees thoughts. It sees thinking.
Do you think that this is true for everyone? How much of it is what you're thinking? How much of it is really, maybe you're particularly good at really thinking this and then it just somehow comes through your pores because you're not moving a muscle. If I did it, someone would be like, can you act, please? You're not doing anything. Do you have to have a strong inner life for that experiment to really work?
I don't know. The more I do this work as an actor, as a writer observing actors, as an improviser, because I improvise with some guys in Chicago, as an actor who's trying, say Tina Landau shows up to direct a show and we do viewpoints, as an actor who maybe will try on different exercises. The more I do this, the more it seems to me it's all about listening and how you listen. And I think there's a difference between somebody. I think you could take two people, put them side by side, have them both do absolutely nothing, right? Don't move a muscle. One of them is listening and one of them isn't. And I think you could tell the difference. I think again, the camera kind of sees it, can see the difference. But I also think all actors are different. I did a play in London years ago. It wasn't very good. It was an original play written by a very nice man who I think knows wasn't very good, so I don't mind saying that. But there were filmed portions of the play. It was a kind of marriage of film and theater. And there was a very good film director who was directing the film portion of it. And I was working with a film actress. And he said to me when he was done, he said, just so you know, he said, she has something about her persona seems activated when she's in motion. She's a person who seems to communicate a lot in motion. It animates her. You seem to communicate a lot through stillness. You seem animated in a different way through stillness. So I don't know if he's right about that, but I think it's an interesting idea that maybe different people have different personae,
energies or something.
Gestalt, I don't know what the word is. Now that I have gotten a little more comfortable on a set and more comfortable with the camera, because that was another leap, by the way. I mean, talking about those early days of Homeland, I remember I was just locked in on my fellow actor, and it's like just trying to black out all of the crew people, camera, the technical aspects, just trying to block it all out. And it took a while, but eventually I got to the point where I was like, oh no, it's okay, there's a camera here. I'm fine with the fact we're playing the scene with a camera here. In other words, in the early days, it was like I didn't want to acknowledge there was a camera recording what I was doing. But then you get to a point where it's okay that the camera's there, and then you get to a point where it's like, bring the camera in, right? Invite the camera. It's fine that it's not only fine that the camera's here, it's good that the camera's here. We're going to do this for the camera.
Yeah, the camera's suddenly your friend.
That's for a theater actor who's unaccustomed to any kind of barrier between the actor and the audience. The camera is, as a presence, is something you have to, if not overcome, something you're going to have to develop a relationship with.
Yes.
And so it took a while to get to that point. And I do feel that now. I do feel, I mean, there are a couple of shots in Ford v Ferrari and Little Women where the camera is really right in my face. And so it took a while till I could get to the point where that was okay. But I will say that as a theater actor, it's so, and my wife and I, who's also a theater actor who's been working in film and TV, we feel we work with a net. We have a certain confidence because of our years of doing theater. I don't know if confidence is the right word, because everybody struggles with their insecurities in different ways, but there is we've got a handle on something as theater actors. We've got a handle on performance as theater actors that gives us a little, just lets us breathe a little more easily when we're on a set.
I am embarrassed to say that I only saw The Lovers yesterday. It totally renewed my thing for romantic movies. Like, this is true romantic movie.
Yeah.
You said that Deborah Winger told you something very interesting on the first day. But
It
this
was
is
one of those
fascinating.
situations where Deborah and I, you'd love to be able to meet the person you're going to act opposite before you're on the set, but it didn't work out, and we weren't able to do that. And so it was a situation where we met in the hair and makeup trailer, an hour before we were conducting an affair with each other, a married couple conducting an affair with each other on camera. So awkward, and we're trying to forge just a little bit of trust or a relationship before we go out there. So we're just having a chat about stuff. And she was familiar with my work as a writer. I don't know how familiar she was with me as an actor. She might have seen a couple of things. And I told her, I said, look, I'm unaccustomed to this. I'm a character actor, and I'm normally somewhat far down on the call sheet, 7 or 8 or 9 or something. We have these little numbers by our names on the call sheet, and 1 or 2 are your leads, and then they go down, and there's a hierarchy about those numbers. And I was number 2 on the call sheet here. I said, I'm not accustomed to that. And she said, well, the responsibilities are a little different. And I said, that's interesting. Tell me about that, because I didn't think they were.
Right.
The responsibilities were the same.
You mean in the work you're talking about, in particularly, like responsibilities in the work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, well, when you're 7 or 8 or 9 on the call sheet, your responsibility is to get the information out and keep the story moving along. And I certainly identified with that as a guy who's had to order a lot of drone strikes and stuff like that in TV and movies and stuff, right? It's like my job on Homeland often was to set the stage with some exposition about what was going to happen in the show. And again, as a character actor, I'm accustomed to that. And that's part of my responsibility, learn how to make that exposition sound like it's not exposition. She said, when you're 7 or 8 or 9, you have that responsibility. She said, but when you're 1 or 2, you have a different responsibility, which is to be interesting. You have to be interesting in every scene. In other words, it's not about information.
Can you just pause for a second? Because that would paralyze me if I was you in that moment. Wait, I have to be like that word, like, please be interesting. This is your first day. Think about that. Think about being interesting. What?
It didn't paralyze me, but it did sound challenging, and it sounded like it sounded true.
Yes.
It sounded really
true.
believable.
That's why it's annoying.
And I thought to myself about films I've watched all my life.
Yes.
And thought, Paul Newman doesn't have a responsibility to move the story along. He doesn't have a responsibility to get the information out. Yes. He has a responsibility to make you want to look at Paul Newman.
Yes. Because things are happening to him. Yes. And that's what happens, and things happen to the top 2 people.
And it's, when you think about Deborah Winger in the movies, especially, go back and watch Terms of Endearment or Officer and a Gentleman. I mean, those are the early obvious examples. You can watch her in anything. She's awfully goddamn interesting. She always has been.
But don't you think that that's a real natural thing? Don't you think that that's just what these people have? And by people, I mean people that get cast. I mean, I don't even like that if this is true. I don't want this to be true. But I think it is. It's like they have a certain something that, you, no matter what she said to you, like, hey, on day 2, she's like, remember, I told you to be interesting.
Right.
You're not really being interesting. Can you up that? You just have it. Is that true?
I've seen it too many times now to believe otherwise. I mean, I think great acting is great acting, but I think there is an ineffable quality that some people have that communicates on camera that just makes you want to look at them.
Yes.
And I look at somebody like, I'll give you an example. I can give you actual examples. When you watch The Road Warrior, and you watch Mel Gibson in The Road Warrior, who I think was maybe 22 years old at the time, and you watch him in that movie and go, what a goddamn movie star.
Yes.
What a star. I can't stop watching him.
Yes.
I don't know if he's any good. I have no idea. I mean, clearly he's good at that. He's good at something.
Yes.
And we have really great examples in the Hollywood firmament, too. I mean, I don't know that John Wayne was a great, skilled actor, but goddamn, he was a great movie star. Bizarre.
Yes.
You look at somebody like Wayne or Bogart, they're sort of odd delivery systems. They're not especially beautiful guys, right? Or really super handsome guys. But there's even look at Bogart. I probably had seen African Queen 3 or 4 times before I realized he's attempting and failing to do an accent. Right?
Didn't matter.
He's doing an accent in that movie. He's just butchering this accent in the movie. And yet he's fantastic. You can't stop watching him.
Yeah. Is there something we can think of where it was interesting, but that person didn't have this? The star didn't have this, quote, star thing. I mean, we're seeing it already. I remember 25 years ago when I was in film school, we were talking, and I was telling people, the next big thing is this reality thing. It's like real people. And everyone's like, what? Nobody wants to see real people. And I think that changed, you know? And there's something about the real person that we are captivated by in a different way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think there is absolutely something to that. But I also think that the way we watch movies and TV have changed so much in the last, well, you said 20 years, maybe 10 years, and that we're in the midst of enormous change. I don't know where it ends. And I'm out of ever since the 2016 election, I'm out of the predicting business. So I don't know where the hell it's going to end. I don't know what the streaming and the future of big screen entertainment. I don't know where that's going to be. Frankly, I don't think anybody knows where it's going to be 10 years from now. Certainly not 20 years from now. But I do think the rules of that change. Nevertheless, you see Little Women, and you see Timothée Chalamet up there in Little Women, and he's not only fantastic, he's beautiful to look at, right? Like Alain Delon or somebody.
Yeah.
Like, God damn, look at that. He's fantastic to look at. That's never going to change. Margot Robbie, right? Obviously she's gorgeous, and she's a charismatic actress, and we're always going to look at those people, regardless of the format or the changes in the culture.
Has your writing career changed the way you approach acting? Do you now get more picky about scripts as an actor? And the opposite being knowing what it's like all these years in TV, film, and on the stage to have to say these words. Does that change the way you write them?
Yeah. All of the above. First of all, as of only a few years ago, I've gotten to the point in my life and career where I get to be picky. For the longest time, I was a broke-ass actor trying to get work, trying to scratch out a living, trying to swing from one job to the next job. I got my first credit card at 43, right? So it's been a long, slow, incremental walk up the hill. And to the point where now I do get to be picky, and I'm incredibly grateful that I'm able to be picky. And I am picky because I can be, and because the only thing I know to be picky about is scripts. I don't know enough about producers or studios, or I know a little something about them, or I know something about directors and actors, but I don't know the combination of those elements that says this is going to be a good movie, even though the script is shit. All I know to do is read a script and say, that's a good script. Therefore, that's something I want to be a part of. And my wife is the same way. She's a very good, smart reader. and we pass scripts back and forth to each other, and we pass books back and forth to each other, and we make most of our decisions based on the merits of the writing. As an actor, you have a responsibility to interrogate writing. Whatever play you're going to do, whatever scene you're going to do, whatever TV show you've been cast in, even if it's VIP, you have a responsibility to interrogate the writing, to see what you can bring to that piece of writing to elevate it. Whether you're 7 or 8 or 9 on the call sheet, or whether you're 1 and 2, you have a responsibility to try to, that's part of the actor's charge, is to elevate the writing. And whether you're doing VIP or you're doing Arthur Miller on Broadway, you have to elevate the writing. And so we have a responsibility to interrogate the material. And so I hope that my interrogation of the material is as an actor. If I'm considering a role as an actor, if I'm on the set of Ford versus Ferrari, I don't put on my monocle and point at the script and say, let me tell you what's wrong with this. Yeah. I'm in there as an actor trying to figure out how to make the scene work. When you're an actor working on a new play, the language you may use in dealing with the playwright and a director about how the play is functioning, how the scene is functioning within the play, what you're contributing to the story. You might have a different way of interrogating the material. If you're on the set of a TV show where they're having to crank out material at a really fast rate, and you don't have quite the quality control on the writing of a TV show that you do on a play. A little sidebar here, I was working with John Wells, who directed the movie version of August, Osage County, and John is a television writer first and foremost, I think he would say. And John, we were out at I think we were at the Toronto Film Festival and with August, and I said, are you going to this party or whatever tonight? And he said, I can't, I have to go back to the hotel and write 18 pages for my TV show. And I said, I don't even know how the fuck you do that. I'm a writer. I couldn't go back and write 18 pages. I mean, forget writing 18 pages that you're actually going to shoot. I wouldn't know how the hell to do that. Yeah. And John looked at me like I was crazy, and he said, sometimes it's not that good. Right? I mean, TV writer, he said, I learned this lesson a long time ago. If you slow up this episode to make it perfect, you're just going to screw the next episode, right? You have to keep generating that material. So as an actor on a TV set, the responsibility is a little different. Yeah. And we will rewrite on a TV set if it makes the writing stronger, if it makes the scene stronger. The writer will often be there pitching in with the producer, with the director, with the other actors. So again, you're interrogating the writing. I'm hoping I'm doing that as an actor. And yeah, I think that as a writer, I've learned a lot from not only my experience as an actor, but watching other actors interacting with their collaborators, interrogating the work in whatever way they need to, and in the challenges they have in making my writing work. Here's why this is hard. Here's why this is hard for them to say. Therefore, maybe I can help them. So there's a Venn diagram, and the heading is storytelling. And acting and writing are two big circles, and they overlap. They don't make a perfect circle, certainly, but there is an overlap that has to do with storytelling, in which the story is told effectively and efficiently, and actors and writers are both contributing to making that work.
You wrote the minutes. It's coming to Broadway. You're in it. If I was the director of this play, it might take some getting used to, because you're in it. And if the other people in the play also, in their relationship to that director, because you're in the play. The author has such a level of importance, much more than in TV or movies. Even if the screenwriter's on the set, there isn't this kind of thing. But when the author is on the stage, do you have this obligation or burden to take away what I'm saying might be in these people's minds, or do you ignore that and just do your work?
We'll find out. I've never done it before. I've never acted in something I've written before.
And the rehearsals haven't even started yet.
That's right.
Shit, I shouldn't even said this.
No, it's good you did, because I've never wanted to do both things. I never wrote stuff for me to act in. I just...
Did you write this for yourself?
I did not.
Oh.
Absolutely not. I didn't want to do it. I'll tell you about it. So I've always tried to keep the two things separate, just because I thought I won't be as good at either job if I'm trying to do both at the same time. And I'm from the Midwest. We don't, there's something that can seem a little, I don't know. I'm not a fan of writing or acting that is tour de force, that draws attention to itself. I'm a bigger fan of the kind of writing and acting that disappears, where you're not so aware of the artist. And I was always afraid that acting in something that I wrote would make the audience hyper aware of the artist. Mm-hmm. So I never wanted to do that. And I didn't want to do it here. We did the play almost 2 years ago in Chicago at Steppenwolf. And William L. Peterson, Billy Peterson, CSI, played this part. I say of CSI, he's a very gifted stage actor, but that's how most people know him. He played the part that I'm playing. But Billy has twin children. They're 6 years old, and he lives in LA. And because he was on CSI, he's got more money than God. And he didn't feel the need to do this play anymore. And I totally respected his decision to do that. But then we went out and we offered the role to a lot of actors who could help us sell the show and get a theater and all that kind of stuff. So lead actors, actors you would know of that basic age and demographic, and they all turned it down. I got turned down by 30 fucking people. And the truth is, they're all great, gifted guys, and they're all leading men, and they've all worked in film and TV, and they don't have, let's say, the greatest appreciation for ensemble theater. And it's not a star part. It's your part. You're one member of an 11-member ensemble.
And everybody's on stage for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
And so they don't necessarily understand the joys of that. And eventually you work your way down the list of 30 people, where I finally got to the point where I was like, well, I'll do it before I let that son of a bitch do it. That's eventually the point we got to. And so I said, yes, all right, I'll do it. It helped get the play done.
Yes, because you're at that level now on the New York stage where you can actually get, your name as an actor can get something.
It helps.
Yeah.
So here's the point I'm at just recently, where I've said to myself, okay, you need to stop bitching about the fact that you're doing this, as in, oh, I had to do this because everybody turned it down. And now you need to get to the point where you start to embrace the challenge of this and what it's going to be like to act in your own play. I'm a real beneficiary of Bill Peterson's work on this, and that I've seen it in production, and I kind of know how it works. It's a good part for me in that it won't draw too much attention to itself. It's not a star part. I don't go out and weep and wail and gnash my teeth. It's not all that kind of stuff. So I am a member of an ensemble. I'm not the hero, right? I haven't written a heroic role or something for myself. So, and what you're talking about, what you're describing, the way the other actors are going to react and how the conversation is going to work with them and the director and the playwright, of course, is the final arbiter in the American theater, and how all that dynamic is going to function in the room. I got to figure that out. I don't know how that's going to go until I get in there and start to work on it. I'm very lucky that I have a long-standing relationship with the director, Anna Shapiro, and I have a long-standing relationship with many of the actors in this play, so that will help. There will be a lot of jokes. There will be a lot of jokes about what an asshole I am that I've written a play that I'm in, and we'll get through those jokes, and then eventually we'll roll up our sleeves and get to work on the play.
Tracy Letts, thank you.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.